All right. Thank you for staying, everyone. You should have, hopefully, an annual report. A lot of work was put into that. Those who wrote the articles and contributed to those articles, as well as Deb's amazing efforts in putting those all together. So yay for that. Yay. Also, there's a single sheet floating around, which has the agenda on one side, and on the other side is the proposed vision statement.
We need to verify, is there more than 10
what I would like to do is have anybody who's not a voting member raise your hand or stand up. That'll be a lot easier.
We won't single you out in that way, but you have voice but no vote, and if you want to become a member, we would be excited about that. Yeah. And we'll be doing that soon because Deborah has transferred in but hasn't officially been welcomed, but I think you could be voting. I don't know, that's probably not true. Is that true? Anyone have a... Okay, so she transferred her membership. We just haven't had a chance to officially welcome her. So we'll count you as a voice but not vote. Voice but not vote. So we have one, 2, 3, I think. Rootsy, you're a member. I think. By confirmation, you confirmed your faith. Yes, you are. Okay, I think that's it. So just 3. And you've got note-taking. Thank you so much. Susan's awesome. All right. And what's next on the agenda? It's not really a devotion. We're going to turn to the back side of your annual report, and then on the inside cover, there's a litany. Inside of the back side. All right. Right here, you could look at it at this. Trying to go electronic. It's not always easy, but here it is. Okay, so I encourage you as we begin together. And this was written, a lot of congregations have their meetings in January. So when it says beginning, I'm going to try to say continued because we are continuing in it's not brand new at the beginning of the year for us. So... Today, we gather in prayer and hope to continue another year of ministry. We bring with us the memory of a year like no other, even as we move into a future that we cannot yet imagine. Yet even now, as in every age, God is our refuge and strength. In times of plenty and want, in times of conflict and peace, in times of growing and pruning, we remember. We remember the past year with lament and gratitude. We have lost so much, and so much still feels uncertain. We have also witnessed God's hand at work in new and unexpected ways. We delight at hidden seeds bearing surprising and wonderful fruit. When our own resources fail, when we cannot predict the future, when we must rely on God alone, we remember.
God has called us
We celebrate this moment and the many ways God has held us together as a community. We give thanks for the gift of our church building and the welcome it provides, even as we bless God for the marvel of technology and the new bonds of connection it makes possible. When our bodies need sanctuary, when our minds need expanding, when your grace must transcend our limitations, we remember. We look ahead to the road we will travel together this year. We anticipate and receive with joy the new gifts God's love has planned. We pray for the grace to let go of what has served its holy purpose. When we are trailblazers or followers, when we are seekers or visionaries, when we walk by faith and not by sight, we remember. And so we pray. Grace our meeting, O God, with the gift of your Holy Spirit, the Spirit who has guided the church from the beginning, the Spirit of our risen Lord Jesus, the Spirit who sends us as healers and restorers of your beloved world. You are the source of our life together. You are the rock and cornerstone. Amen.
All right, thank you for coming. The first on the agenda is to approve this annual report from 2021. So before we actually get to an approval of it, what we're going to do is highlight a few items in it that we wanted to bring up. First of all is it on? Oh. First, we need to approve the minutes from the spring meeting last year and the fall meeting. So I don't know if we need an actual vote for that. Sue, does anyone know?
It is not spelled out in our Constitution. To be on the safe side, I think we should
Okay.
have a motion for approval and take vote.
First of all, for the spring of last year, is there a motion to approve that?
I move that we accept them.
All right. Second. Anybody have any questions about it? All right, let's call for a vote. For all who approve, raise your hand. Do not approve? Okay, it passes. And we'll go through the same thing with the fall, it turned out to be winter minutes. Can we get a motion? Second? Thank you. Anybody have questions? Hal Schultz, I'm sorry. Hal Nilsson, sorry. And then any discussion or questions on them? All right, all in favor?
Don't forget Clark up in the
Opposed? So it's unanimous, I think. All right, let's move into the treasurer's report. Paul, can you want to speak on that for 30 seconds?
I trust all of you have read and fully digested the 10 pages of numbers on. Oh, is that better? Anyway, if you haven't, it's okay. At least it's there for the record. So 2021 was a pretty good year, at least in one respect. You'll remember that we applied for and received 2 PPP grants, one in 2020 and one in 21. Both of those were forgiven last year. And so those funds, instead of being a liability, were added basically to our cash reserves. The other thing that was very positive for the year was some very generous or very fortuitous investment gains, and that added another 25,000 to our general fund. On the other hand, aside from these rather unanticipated and unpredictable fortuitous events, we seem to have a pattern in the last few years of spending more money operationally than we receive in donations. Last year it was $62,000 deficit. Is that the right number? I think it is. The year before, I think it was 42. Our current budget is a little better at something like 24, I think it is. But like I say, it's a pattern of deficit spending, and I just can't help but be a little bit concerned about that for our future. So with that, if there are any questions, I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Paul. So everybody think positive thoughts. I think we'll speak a little bit more to that sustainability and vision during the vision discussion that we have. But at this point, we're going to move into one of the committees I'd like to call on to give a brief summary of what they're doing. Susan, could you come up? You've got a team that you're working with.
Has to be part of the vision at the, a little bit later.
Or during that time?
Is that okay? I don't want to mess up your schedule.
Nope, before or after, or what are you thinking? When?
We'd like to be part of the vision as we move down in strategic planning.
Okay. So you had a report in there, and I assumed that you would cover a little bit of that in there. So at this point, there are also various other reports in there. They're listed on your agenda in the page numbers. All the different ministries we have and reports that are in there. Not every report is listed there, but they give the sections at least. So with that, also one other item that I'd like to point out in there, and we're going to talk about just for a second before we get into the vision, and that is Alicia's going to talk a little bit about the survey that everybody filled out last fall, I believe, toward the end of the year. Do you want to come up, Alicia?
Can y'all hear me? Yep. I got the teacher voice, man.
All right. Hi. Okay, so last spring's congregational meeting, we did some constitutional changes where there was a gap in the evaluation part was left out of the Constitution, or we removed it from mutual ministry. So the request of the congregation was that council create a survey to sort of address or evaluate how the congregation and the minister were doing each year, and so that we could find issues as a council if there was a red flag to address. So we posted the results. They're in the annual report right behind my report, which I don't know what page that's on, but you'll see all the charts. All the charts are the results. And council went through those, and we're really pleased to say we felt very, very good about the survey was written to align with the goals and expectations of congregation and minister, and so the questions addressed those expectations. And the decision on council was that every question for which the over 90% of the responses were somewhat agree, that was within a range that we were comfortable with, that didn't need to be addressed. And I'm happy to say that that was true for basically every question. I do want to pass it back to Jeff now, because we also used some of those results to create the vision. Here we go.
All right, thank you, Alicia. Before I get into that, though, I think we need to call for a motion to approve the annual report. So could I get a motion for approval of that? Thank you, Bill. Herb, seconds. Discussion. Anyone want questions about it? other items that they'd want to bring up? All right, then let's vote. All in favor of approval? Opposed? It looks to be unanimous. Okay, so that's approved. Let's move into the vision then. This is the way I'm going to handle this today is I'll give a brief introduction of the vision, and then we'll move into just similar to what we did with the other items. I'll ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll discuss if people have questions or anything else they'd like to bring up, or, say it for, a statement for it or against it. Feel free to do that at that point. So right now I'm just going to give a little bit of history, background of what we went through and how this came up. I apologize if my voice is a little shaky because I don't like speaking in front of people.
You're doing a fine job, Jeff.
So anyway, survey results were a portion of how this came about, but I believe it started a little before that, where we did a little strategic planning when Alicia was president, and we started talking with the ELCA to a person, his name Dana Peterson, and he specializes in that sort of thing. So early in the year, we brought it to council, and how do we want to get this going? So we met and we decided, let's create a subcommittee, because trying to create a vision with a group of 15 people is a lot more difficult than trying to get something the other way. So we did that. We met with Dana, and he suggested we go through the process of, your mission, values, core values, then into a vision, and then finally we'll go into, at some point,
Don't forget this step that we were going through.
the St. Paul Lutheran discernment process.
Don't forget the step where we were.
Just a reminder, we went through a discernment process back in 2015 timeframe and did a lot of work. And so the very first thing that group did was sit down with these books, they're quite thick, and went through what did we think, what did we decide back in 2015. So we wanted to build on all the work that was previously done rather than starting over again.
Thank you, Susan. It's important. And I will mention that a little bit later, but not that I'm going to go on that long. But so we going through that process, we needed to determine the core values and the mission, and we went through those things and decided as a group that we're actually really good with the mission that we have. The mission statement that's printed on your agenda and everything is really solid. We felt like this still applies to us, and our core values we could agree on. So now
Maybe we should read that, or you're going to read that when you go through.
I certainly can. All right. And our mission is St. Paul, as a community of faith in Christ, is radically welcoming, strives for justice, and loves its neighbor as itself. So I'm just going to list the core values. They are listed right there with the vision. I know that wasn't in the published document, but it was integral in bringing together the vision. And that is, God's Spirit works in the world through actions of people, being welcoming to all and supportive of each other, building community, and worshiping God liturgically with music very central to that experience for most. These are the core values that we discussed at great length and determined to come up with a vision. So in the process, we did go back and forth between committees and had some very good discussion from the subcommittee to the council retreat, back to the subcommittee, and finally we had a breakthrough meeting where we had some very passionate discussions and talked and came up with a vision and put it in front of council. And council unanimously approved that we take this council to the congregation for acceptance. You might ask, just looking at it, why the key decision at the top? The key decision we felt very important for several reasons. One, bringing up the discernment process in going through it, in all of us reading it, it was really obvious one of the big roadblocks that we ran into for almost every committee was, well, what if we're not staying? What if we're going to move? Why are we going to add on to the church if we're going to move? Why are we going to improve the sanctuary if we're going to move? Why are we going to reach out to UNM and possibly partner with them if we're going to move? Why reach out to the whole neighborhood and make sure that we know our neighbors if we're going to move? The same issue that you'd have if you don't know where you're going to be rooted. So we decided that it was very important to make sure that everyone knows that we are here and we're here for good and we're going to be in this community. So that's why we put it in there. And when you vote, there is a vote for that key decision and the vision. It's not just the vision, and it's not just the key decision, it's both. So the other question that comes up is this sustainable? This came up as well as the arguments for it, and that is critical to any vision. If you commit, everyone can commit to it. If everyone can move in the same direction. If we all believe in the vision, we can sustain this. So I want everybody, when you vote, it means that you believe in this vision. And you believe that we can stay here. You believe we can do this. You'll be amazed what we can do if we all look in the same direction. So, if we pass this thing, there are next steps. And the next steps are, this is the beginning, is voting for this. If the next steps are going to be everybody here is involved, this is not, congregation got involved now it's up to council, hand it over to them. Not to say that people in the congregation aren't doing anything, but they will be involved. They will be asked to participate, and everybody, as whatever Bible verse says, everybody has talents. Everybody has talents. Some are sewing, some are raking, some are whatever. But I'm not going to give a sermon, but everybody has their own deal. So I'm not going to go on any longer. Just know there are next steps, and you will be involved. That part of it is figuring out what those next steps are. So with that, do I have a motion?
Do we want to read it out loud together? Has everyone had it? I think that would be a good idea
I'll read it out loud and you can follow. How about that? The key decision. The St. Paul Church building is a beautiful sacred space that is meaningful to our congregation and ties us together. We will stay in that space while modifying it as needed to best serve God's people. And the vision is St. Paul is a hub for a variety of ministries and a central learning space, teaching people to live their faith in many ministry opportunities. The worship experience is our beautiful sacred space, nurtures us as a community so that we can be connected to many community outreach and social justice activities. There are a few items listed below. Those are possibilities. They're not meant to be we are going to do these things. These are possibilities of what those next steps are. So I'm not going to stop it there, and I'm going to say, can we get a motion for approval?
I move that we accept the key decision and vision as written.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Let's bring up questions and people speaking for and against. And I don't want to shun anyone. We need to know everybody's opinion.
Now's your time.
Okay, maybe I get to speak now. The anti-bias group has been looking, we've been reading books, we've been talking with each other, and we've been actively trying to find steps forward. And I think the three biggest areas of concern right now and desire is that we have open communication to as many people as possible, that we talk about the issues of immigration, asylum, social justice, anti-racism, many issues that we all know about and we all experience in our life. We also want to talk about who's responsible. How do we get this leadership going forward? I think in most organizations we tend to wear out our leaders. So I think it's important that everybody be prepared to step up and take part of that role. And then the organization. How do we organize the process forward to joining our greater community, our church community, maybe all of the ELCA churches in the city and our neighborhood communities. So that's what we're looking for or what we're thinking about. There are two other people. Jan's going to speak, and then Ivan has a few words to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The thing that bothers me the most about this statement is that God is not mentioned anywhere. Where is God calling this group of people to go? And it may or may not be centered around the building, but it should be centered around the people. My fear is that during COVID, we have lost a lot of our community because we have not been together. We come on Sunday mornings, but how well do we know one another? And I think it's important that we build on those strengths. And I will always ask, where is God calling us to be in the world today?
Where's Ivan?
Ivan gets it next. You're the last. I want to talk to
To build on what Jan said, music is great. I listen to it every day, but I'm a little worried that word in sacrament is not mentioned here. The other 2 points I can accept, though we could always be more welcoming. Key decision, I can't take it. I cannot vote for that because 7 years ago, it was a lot more logical to say, we'll stay here. But now, we're much smaller, and you know that by this time next year, some of us won't be here in this meeting. That's because count the heads. I did that. Most of this group is way over 60. And what is it you want from us except our endowments when we pass? I mean, physically, there's only so much we can do. Financially, there's so much we can do. We have more medical costs now. So I think staying in the space should not be spelled out as a point that everyone should go home and pray about this and come back at another time and vote on that.
Ivan, and then I see Hannah.
My concern about this statement is that it came from a small committee. It got passed through the council, but I think probably I wasn't there, so I can't judge that process. But my concern is this needs to come from the congregation. We talked about belonging this morning, Pastor, and I appreciated your good words about that. If there is that sense of belonging, then we would gather together in small groups or however, and we've done this in the past. That's how that mission statement came about. It was a whole bunch of small groups meeting and sharing at a heart level. We know how to do it. We've done it in the past. So my point or suggestion, and I want to make it stronger than a suggestion, but is that council take the responsibility for leading small groups of us in the discussion around this statement. And consider all of the aspects of it, my concerns around social justice, and that is basic to our ministry, but that means not just an occasional meal here and there, but actual engagement in the life of the community. And I think that can come about as we gather and share personally our concerns and interests in small group. So I want to challenge the council to take the leadership role in doing small group meetings through the next month or two, to really get at the basics of being community, discussing a vision for St. Paul. This is a nice bunch of good Lutheran words, but missing some key words. But it's wordy, and it really doesn't get at a vision as far as I'm concerned. And so I challenge the council to take the leadership. I will set up a training session for them if you want, and I think they should have that. They need to learn their way of leading. I will, using our resources as a member institution of Albuquerque Interfaith, our lead organizer will be happy to come and do a training session and demonstrate how a small group meeting can really go to get at the issues that are concerning us and get at the heartfelt responses to that. So I propose that, challenge council to take that on.
Thank you. We've got Hal here after Hannah.
Our first time at this church was sitting over there, and it was a congregational meeting. And it was the same conversation. And we've been here for, I don't know how many years now. But I will tell you that this church has always been about community. This church has always been about welcoming. This church is always at a starting point. And I think that if we see only the barriers, we will be stuck here forever. We will continue to have these meetings. Or we can say this is a starting point of doing the impossible. The impossible. The crazy impossible. And this morning, we heard a story about someone putting their clothes on and jumping in the water. That sentence doesn't make sense. But that's what all of this is. None of it makes sense. It's when we all come together and we serve a common vision. That common vision that I have seen here and felt here and lived here is community and welcome. And that is a starting point for great things that built this building. I wasn't here during that process, but I have to think people said, there's no way we can build a congregation with 10 billion bricks. But they did, because they believed in the impossible. So my challenge to all of you today is put your clothes on and jump in the water.
Really appreciate all of the conversation. Who are we up?
With all due respect to my dear friends Nancy and Ivan, and a high regard for their commitment to this congregation and an appreciation for Hannah's eloquence, it seems to me that over the years, the barrier that has prevented us from moving forward is this key decision. Will we stay or will we leave? And it has been our inability for about the past decade, when we have talked about this, to embrace this question and come up with an answer that has prevented us from making decisions to move past the barrier. So I see the key decision as the key decision. And with regard to continuing conversation, we have had many small groups over the years, many of them led by Ivan and others on the Albuquerque Interfaith team, where we have talked together about our personal stories and our vision for this congregation. Once again, I think we are at a decision point. We either decide today to move on, or let's just wither away, because over the years, that's what we have done to some degree, is to just move the ball further down the court and not make these key decisions that will allow us to embrace the future to which God is calling us.
Well, I'm not going to be as eloquent as you guys were, but I feel like this statement is a beginning. The first thing it says is God's Spirit works in the world through the actions of people. And I think we need to act. I, for one, will not participate in any more small group discussions where we do the same thing over and over and get nowhere. I feel like this, we mention our commitment to social justice. We talk about how this is a place to bring people together and try new things, and I think that's what we need to do. I think our core group for anti-racism is key, and I think that's a bold way that we're going to start moving forward in a different direction. So I agree with what everybody said, but I'm not going to be in any more small groups talking about the same thing ad nauseum. Sorry.
Jeff. I feel like we are suffering from what happened to the whole world with the pandemic and our fear, and there are some of us who are very cautious and careful, and we need those people, but we can't be paralyzed. Terry, I agree. Hal, I agree. We have been given opportunities out of weird, falling out of the sky, kind of, with the PPP money, and that helped us through. Calico has been given a huge grant by the state. We need to step forward, and I agree, the key decision is, are we in this building or are we not? If we're not, we are going to crumble off into the abyss, is what I fear. And I feel like we need to be brave. Hannah, I'm ready to jump in.
You keep yours, Jeff. Jeff, you keep your microphone. I'll move around.
So, hi. I just want to say, I do think my concern about the key decision, if we don't approve that key decision, isn't that we're going to crumble into the abyss, which I can hear what Paul is saying. But my concern is our energy is going to be focused on a move. I'm actually trying to move right now. I cannot tell you how much of my mind is occupied with the details of that move. And I think if our energy is focused on that, that's what it's going to be on. And I think it's time that God's calling us to do mission in this space. That's my feeling. Our energy should be focused there. Thank you.
We have one more over here, and I saw some other hands up, so hold them up high if you want to go next.
Hi. That's it. Okay. Hi. Well, I would agree.
You should introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Deborah Ash. Hello. I'm the office coordinator as of beginning of February. Yay. So I would agree that this congregation has always been about outreach. I was a member here. I left 30 years ago, and I'm certainly happy to be back. But that level of energy and engagement and commitment to the community, I think, is a cornerstone of St. Paul. It's why it's a great place to be. The other thing I would say about the outreach and the use of the space is, so I've been dealing a lot with the people who are using our space. You've probably heard voices. That's why I call it the GACC is going down the hall to Fellowship Hall for their monthly worship. And, there's a lot of positive energy and gladness that we are able to share this space, and there's a lot of good energy about, from those folks about the importance of this space and also the upkeep of it. I think as time goes on, we're going to see a whole level of engagement that is going to support and lift up this physical plant, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. And I think that, they care. They care about this. They care to keep it up. And I think that they will be our partners walking forward about the physical space, but it's also God's work in our community. And I think we have to have faith in that.
I'm wondering, and this is a question, how does this work with what we are doing with Pastor Dana Peterson? How will this affect what he does with us? And I can't answer that, and maybe no one can, but I would like to carry that a little bit further also.
And as I mentioned, that this is a beginning point. Pastor Dana Peterson is working with the ELCA, and he has agreed he will work with us. The next steps, to get into a little more detail, is to begin setting those goals and objectives. In that, I mentioned, everyone here is going to be involved in that, and this is where our intention is absolutely that we are going to have small groups coming up with goals and objectives that are very specific so that we can chase those down and make sure that, one, we have the support for everybody, enough people in the congregation to pursue a given activity. But without the volunteers to join that committee or whatever, we can't do it. So that's where we have to get a feel for, do we have enough to garner support and of an idea that one thing Mary Graves has been instrumental is looking down in a lot of things actually, but she's reached out to Albuquerque High School. They would love to meet with us and talk through possibly the kids coming down here at the end of the day. Because some
Which
don't
they
have a
already
place to
are.
go.
If you come here when the school lets out, the parents are smart. They're picking their kids up in our parking lot where it's not as crowded. Cool.
So we've got subcommittees going now, but this is the center of those ideas. This is a center of some very instrumental people that are reaching out to people in the community that we can partner with, and we can commit to being here for them. So the goals part starts next, and it's a beginning. Now we decide, are we going to go?
Will, I see hands up, and Julie, I'm right here, and then Will, you'll go next.
I was hoping that we would get to the next steps, because I'd like to see us move off of making this key decision, getting past the fact of, are we going to move, because then the next question is going to be, well, where are we going? What are we doing? And we fumble and stumble for the next however many years. I would like to see us get past that key decision and get into what the excitement is that council is beginning to work on, those small committees of where are our opportunities. When we moved here 50 years ago, we were the top of the hill. Now when you come over the top of the hill off of Indian School Road, we sit amongst buildings and a community around us. And we haven't reached out to those possibilities. We've stayed isolated. And I believe that we have a whole, maybe a corporate world, maybe a medical world, maybe a school, but it's community. And I think there's a second chapter for St. Paul in this location. And I'd like to get past the key decision, accept it, and move on to those next steps of excitement.
Thank you.
Well,
I want to talk in a positive way. I think that we have the opportunity in front of us now. We have not met for 2 years. Now we're finally back together.
amen.
Forward. What I would say is that we have a couple of opportunities. One, I think that faith formation, education, we've had a great forums there, and we're going to have various organizations and people and concepts coming forward, which it will be good to schedule them through faith formation on Sunday mornings after service. The other thing is we are, besides Albuquerque High and Rio Grande High School and other organizations, Albuquerque Interfaith, we also have Faith Works. We have put forth $5,000 the last 2 years to be members, and now Faith Works is moving forward. And Faith Works will be coming to talk with the pastor, correct?
All the office volunteers.
Pardon?
All the office. FaithWorks will be coming to talk to the office volunteers, as they tend to be kind of the first line of people that come who are seeking help. So FaithWorks is going to help us learn how they can help us help them.
And there are two things already on the table. One is, if you read in your bulletin, we have an opportunity. FaithWorks has another appropriation that the mayor wants to give us in the budget process, and we will have an opportunity in the budget process the next 2 months with the city to just contact our city councilor and say, please support FaithWorks appropriations. That's one opportunity. We have another opportunity. FaithWorks will be coming to work with housing and the homeless. And on March the 15th, somewhere in there, they're going to have the first training session.
Okay.
For
Well, we appreciate all of the, there's a lot to learn about all the ministries that people are passionate about, but this may not be the best venue for that. I know we've got a lot to go through. So if we can maybe wrap those thoughts up on FaithWorks and then move on.
So, Ivan, if we can get that, the education committee, what's it called, faith formation, get that going again. I think that's a good focal point, too.
Thank you, Will.
Jeff, I would like to call for a vote.
How do I handle that?
Call to question.
Do we cut off discussion?
Move the previous question. I didn't say it.
Hold on.
We have point of order here.
It's a point, it is called a question.
The motion of the previous question is a regular motion. It requires a second. It is not debatable, and it requires a 2/3 majority. If the motion passes, debate stops, and the original motion is voted upon.
We love our parliamentarians. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
So we've got we've got a motion to vote. We've got a second to that motion. So now we have a
Who moved to end the discussion?
Joe Browning.
Browning, Roger. So is there discussion on whether?
No discussion.
Oh, it's not a debatable motion. Okay. So we vote 2/3. If approved, then we do it. All in favor?
Keep your hands up because I have to count.
Nice and high if you want to have your, I know, it's an exercise. You can switch hands. You just can't do both hands.
I counted 39 with you 40 and to end the discussion. Oh, Laura, there. I didn't even count you to begin with. Can we?
Yeah, to call the question.
Opposed, please?
I see 3.
Debate is closed.
I think that we have ended discussion.
Okay, so now I'd like to ask for a motion to, oh, the motion's already done.
I can reread the motion for
Please.
you if you would like.
Would you give her the mic, please?
Thank you.
The motion was to accept the key decision and vision as written. So those are the two elements that we're voting on, key decision and vision. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? I count 34, including myself. All opposed? I count 8.
Motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda.
Wait. Before we move on, I want to thank everyone for their just open, honest conversation. It's not easy, and rarely do things happen, I think, by consensus, in my opinion. And so sometimes we don't, it doesn't move the way we want it to, but I hope as a community, we all give it our best shot. I think one thing I want to point out from the ad hoc team, which I was a part, was that we did look at the previous efforts a lot, and it had a lot of bearing, and then certainly where are we now was the question. The other thing that came up is that we know, I'll repeat what Dana Peterson said. We kind of mentioned that we had some money in our piggy bank, and he said, well, how much, what are you talking about? Are we talking $100 or are we talking a lot, So we kind of disclose. We have a piggy bank, if you will. We also have endowment funds, which are not necessarily for operating expenses or day-to-day general budget, but it is for things such as this. So there are possibilities that we have some resources. We are a very blessed church in that way. So we have some resources, and I do believe for us to move forward, we're going to need some help, and that might mean hiring some help. Because I tell you, Susan, who's technically contracted, but I consider her part of staff as music, and Deborah and me, and Clark, well, we have a lot of volunteer groups, and there's some, it's hard to distinguish because you guys are working hard. And I heard, Nancy, I heard you on that. We can't, squeeze blood out of a turnip, but we have a lot of resources and other ways to do things if we can, as I guess Hannah said, jump into the lake, put our clothes on weirdly and jump into the lake. It's going to be hard, but we're working hard. As your staff and all of you as volunteers, and everything counts. But I don't think we have to say this many people in the congregation is going to turn it around. we're going to need some help doing that. And we have the resources to do that. And we are smart people, man. We have lots of great ideas. So I am looking forward to the energy growing. So I just want to say thank you.
I second that. And I shouldn't have been so quick to move on to the next action agenda item, but that's kind of the
we're a team.
Yeah, it's the facilitator in me, I guess. But I do want to thank also everybody for speaking their mind, whether you're for it or against it, because the next step is going to require everybody who did not vote absolutely for it so that we can make this thing be exactly what you want and what you feel is the right way to go. It hasn't ended. The debate will never end. So let's just stay with it, and we will have those small groups that we want for those that want to give their opinions. So I'd like to move on to the next agenda item now, not so abruptly, and talk about how you can be involved. We currently have nobody volunteering to be the president next year. So we're lacking both the president for next year and the president-elect. A good way to make your voice heard is to volunteer for that. So my plea right now is for either. If you want to even be on council, maybe we can convince a council member to join as the president and you can move into a council position. So, I mean, absent anyone here that wants to be volunteering for either the president or the president-elect position for next year, please join the council. That's a great way to make your voice heard, and we voted unanimously. So we need your voice because we're not hearing it at council. We're not hearing it in the subcommittee. So join council.
And if I could piggyback on that, for those who are new to St. Paul, the process is president-elect, president, past president. So they're trying to hold, like, you get a year to get your kind of feet, well, jump in with your clothes on, and then you get to do it, and you're not alone. It's a great group. We're all working well together. And the past president, as Alicia's doing this year, is holding continuity, helping us, like, kind of, this is what happened. And so that's the process. So no matter what you jump in to do, you're not alone.
Thank you. So do we have any people that want to volunteer to be on council or either of the president or president-elect position for next year? Okay. What's that? Roger, you'll step into president or president-elect? We'll work it out. Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
It's still wrong.
You gave me chills. All right, we've got an activity coming up with St. Tim's that we are going to, well, actually, I talked to Peggy. Peggy has agreed to help put together ice cream scoops onto a tray, but I'd want to encourage everybody in the congregation to join that activity of getting together with St. Timothy's on May 16th. If you want to speak a little bit more about life,
I will. I'm going to learn more about it too. It's an acronym for something, and it's in our bulletin, and I don't remember it. Does anyone have their bulletin handy? Life, Liberty in Financial Education, and it's a really cool program. Well, one, I'll back up a little bit more. How many of you knew that St. Tim's was started from a small group of St. Paul many, many, many years ago? So we have this cool connection that it feels like we're trying to, reawaken. So Pastor Rachel called me and said, we've had great success. You have been supporting this financially with a lump sum a while ago, and then it's come to a point where they might need a little more money, but we also wanted to celebrate where, I think there were 44 families that have been graduated this program. They get kind of a micro loan from the bank that's involved, and it's really to help people get that freedom of have some cushion for them. So on the 16th, out on the Labyrinth, it's a Monday, 5:30-ish, we're gonna have root beer floats. That's where the ice cream and pre-scooping comes in. So if you want to be a part of that, connect with Peggy. That's going to be done before that Monday, and I'll hold on to that. And then St. Tim's is bringing the root beer. So we're going to make root beer floats together. That's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of cool. And we already have ice cream. So enough for 64. So we're cool on the ice cream. So we just need to scoop. See how it comes together? It's amazing. And it's going to be a great just social time. We'll learn about the program a little bit and just spend some time together out on the Labyrinth.
I remember the first time Roger volunteered at one of these meetings to be considered. And I was as pleased then as I am now to make a motion that we accept by acclamation Roger as president for the coming year.
Does that make him president-elect for the remainder of this year?
Yes. President-elect for the remainder of this year, and my motion includes by acclamation.
I second. Can I second that? Any other seconds?
How about if I second, and then you don't have to give up the chairmanship?
All right, sounds good. Any discussion? Then let's vote for that. All that are in favor. Motion passes. All opposed. Motion passes. Sorry to withdraw Roger. Yes. Go ahead.
I have a mic. We're back to scooping ice cream. So after church next week, I have the two confirmation students, and I had planned a different activity, but I'm going to forego that activity, and we're going to scoop ice cream, and we need help. So anybody who is willing to help, please bring an ice cream scoop, because I don't know how many are in the kitchen, and join us. And I've already recruited Rootsy, so. Oh, good. So the one thing I told Jeff when he approached me about this is I said, I only have scooped ice cream for my family, and they didn't care what it looked like. You know? So somebody needs to teach me. So, okay. So anyway, what we're going to do is scoop ice cream, put it on like a cookie sheet, and put it in the freezer ready to go, and it'll be easy. So, thank you.
That's the plan. Originally, it started out as beer and pretzels, but that's a whole nother story.
Okay, we've got one more item on the agenda and this is a topic by our president-elect.
Okay.
You want me to hold it?
Yeah. There's a flyer going around that summarizes where we are on the monument sign. And this kind of ties into what Paul started with. The monument sign is not coming out of any operational funds right now. Everything that's going into the video sign has been raised through separate contributions from y'all, and I thank you for that. I've got a summary at the bottom. Because of my stubbornness, the sign cost us a little bit more than it was originally supposed to cost. I'm going to make that up myself. The rest of the costs are on here. Lee is working right now with a firm for installation. I got the installation information today, but we don't have finalized costs for that. One of the things that Lee also brought in is that we need to do some repairs to the old signs, electrical, so it fully lights up and is functional. I've got those costs in here too. And sorry, Nancy, we need to look for about another $7,000. But I won't know those until next week. I won't know those until we start getting the bids for the installation together, and I'll let everybody know then. But I want to end on a high note. The council at the last meeting approved the design where we increased the height to 6 feet so that it won't be quite as much of a target of potential vandalism. It will be positioned in line with the current sign, between the current sign and Indian School, and it'll be perpendicular to Indian School. It's still two-sided, so it'll be visible from both directions, driving up and down Indian School. Jeff signed off on the release to the fabricator about a month ago, day after tomorrow. And delivery time is 8 weeks after that, so we're halfway through. Within about a month, we should have a big crate showing up in the front entry that has the sign inside. Oh, we're also going to replace the slides on the current sign, and Calico is buying their own big sign that will replace the upper portion of the current monument sign. And I appreciate that. So our welcoming interface with the outside world will look a little bit more refreshed within about 6 weeks.
And it'll also, the smaller signs, there are 4 of them. There's one large one that's Calico, and then there are 4 slides on each side. One will become Corolux, our ensemble and residents, and they chipped in a healthy portion, as well as Lutheran Advocacy Ministry, since Kurt hangs his hat here. So we're kind of excited about that. That leaves 2 empty slots. Just saying. Yep, there are more flyers. We do want Blessed Oscar Romero taken out. People have been asking about that. That's cool. We might have some blank ones that are in the back here even. Yeah. So there are some blank ones, and just an update on Blessed St. Oscar Romero that they turned to. It never got replaced even after they renamed. That Father Frank he's kind of entered a time of sabbatical, and I know he's had some health concerns as well, so hold him in your prayers. But when he moved back to Denver to be with family, the community is small, and they just are not sure what direction they want to go. So they are no longer meeting here. They are welcome to meet here. So one of those slots might be returned to them. I don't know. So we hold them in prayer.
I believe, Nancy.
So now you just have to decide whose job it is to enter the digital message.
The digital, yes, because I made mention of that too. We have these 2 digital TVs in our entryway that could be a part of that. And I'm remembering a communications director then maybe we shouldn't have voted that down. But I get it. But I think there's some potential when we say hiring. There's lots of ideas that we have to try to incorporate what we're doing. And I hope Deb and I have had some conversation. She is willing to do more than part-time. So that's a huge thing for us. So I think there's all kinds of positives and opportunities. So let's put our clothes on, jump out into the water.
Stay up here. Paul?
Point of order, I guess.
Here, Paul.
If we are going to increase personnel expenditures, do we need to have a congregation meeting to amend the budget?
I believe it's 10% increase in the overall budget would require a congregational vote, if I remember right.
That does sound familiar, okay.
So we'd have to do the numbers.
I think definitely we would put a plan together and put that before certainly council.
Council, then congregation, absolutely. We are at the end of our agenda. We've gone a few minutes over. I planned on making this an hour, but I think it's time for devotions at the end then.
There's a prayer that had become my favorite during COVID, and it's actually on that same page that we opened with. It's in bold, so I'm hoping you will join me. It's the bottom right-hand corner. O God, you have called your servants to ventures of which we cannot see the ending, by paths as yet untrodden, through perils unknown. Give us faith to go out with good courage, not knowing where we go, but only that your hand is leading us, your love supporting us, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. And we, Terry, and we will.